In a quiet village tucked deep in the mountains of Colombia, people spoke in whispers about a pastor named Ezekiel. He wasn't just a man of God, he was a monster in disguise. Behind sermons of peace and forgiveness, he ran a secret cult, one that demanded blood. When villagers disappeared, no one dared question it. Until one night, tragedy knocked on the door of a little boy named Mateo. Mateo was only 9 when his world shattered. His mother, father, and older sister were taken under the cover of darkness. By morning, only ash and silence remained where his home once stood. The villagers turned away. Fear ruled them. But Mateo, small, quiet, and grief-stricken, burned with something else: vengeance. For a year, Mateo lived in the shadows, surviving in the wild, learning from old hunters who once roamed the forests. He learned how to track, how to move without sound, and how to wait. But most of all, he learned how to think, because he knew he was no match for Pastor Ezekiel in strength. But maybe, just maybe, in cunning he had a chance. On the night of the annual cleansing ceremony, when the pastor gathered his cult under the guise of worship, Mateo made his move. He crept into the compound, wearing the cloak of a stolen cult member. In his hand, a small vial, poison made from the venom of a rare jungle frog. Lethal, silent. He waited until the wine was brought out, ritual wine that the pastor always drank first. As Ezekiel raised the cup and spoke of divine judgment, Mateo, from the shadows, added a single drop into the chalice. Seconds later, the pastor drank. And then, he fell. The crowd gasped. Chaos erupted. Mateo stepped forward, face calm, eyes burning. "This is for my family," he whispered. The cult broke apart after that night. Authorities finally listened. Journalists came. The world was stunned, not just by the crimes, but by the boy who ended them. Mateo was taken in by a kind family, far from the village. He rarely spoke of that night, but in his eyes, people said, was a strength far beyond his years, the strength of a boy who faced evil and chose not fear, but justice. For a while, peace returned to Mateo's life. He lived in the city now, in a modest home with his adoptive mother, Clara, a former human rights lawyer who saw something unshakable in the boy's eyes. She gave him books, safety, and silence when he needed it. At school, Mateo didn't talk much, but his grades were perfect, his reflexes sharp, and his nightmares endless. Because something wasn't right. One evening, Clara handed Mateo an envelope that had arrived without a return address. Inside, just a photo, a grainy picture of Pastor Ezekiel, smiling. But he was supposed to be dead. Mateo stared at the photo for a long time. The man in the picture had the same scar across his temple, but there was no mistaking it. He was alive. Or someone wanted Mateo to believe so. Clara contacted her old sources. What she found chilled her. Ezekiel's body had vanished before the authorities arrived at the compound. The official report was sealed, the autopsy never done. The cult may have had deeper roots than anyone imagined. That night, Mateo made a decision. He dug up the old notebook he had hidden under the floorboard, filled with drawings, names, places his father once spoke of, places where the cult had branches. He knew now the ceremony he had crashed was only one chapter in something much bigger, and he had only cut off a single head of the serpent. He was only 9, but his path had been chosen long ago. And now he would hunt. But he wouldn't be alone. Clara, against every instinct as a mother, gave him something she had kept locked for years, a USB drive containing evidence she'd once collected during her own investigations, documents linking the cult to high-level figures, even within government and law enforcement. "There's something bigger than revenge, Mateo," she told him, holding his hand tightly. "It's truth, and truth scares them more than poison ever will." From that night on, Mateo wasn't just a boy anymore. He became a symbol of the fight against shadows that had ruled for too long. But what he didn't know was that Ezekiel had been watching him all along. And the game had just begun. 3 weeks after the photo arrived, Mateo disappeared. Clara found only a note on his bed. "Don't follow me. If you get hurt, I won't forgive myself. I'll come back when I know the truth. But she didn't sit still. Clara was no stranger to secrets, and she knew this one had roots deeper than anyone dared to imagine. While Mateo vanished into the underworld of South America, she reached out to old contacts across 3 continents, trying to piece together the remains of the cult Ezekiel once led, a group now whispered about as La Serpiente Blanca, the White Serpent. Meanwhile, Mateo's journey took him across borders, through old towns and silent forests, following clues left behind by survivors, deserters, and even a few brave souls who once tried to take the cult down from within. In Ecuador, he met Lucas, a hacker only 2 years older, who lived in an abandoned radio station and had been tracking the cult's encrypted communications. "They're not a cult anymore," Lucas said, eyes darting around. "They're a network. They've gone digital. Money laundering, arms trading, even politics." Mateo showed him the photo of Ezekiel. Lucas paled. "He's not dead." Mateo shook his head. Lucas leaned in. "Then you need to see this." He opened a secure folder. Inside, dozens of videos, strange rituals, coded broadcasts, faces hidden behind porcelain masks. And at the center of one, standing in front of a fire-lit crowd, Ezekiel, older, colder, and now calling himself a voice. He hadn't just survived. He'd evolved. Mateo stared at the screen. Behind Ezekiel was a symbol he'd never seen before, a serpent wrapped around a cross of broken bones. But in the corner, there was something else, a logo, a red mark shaped like an inverted teardrop. Lucas zoomed in. That symbol, it's from a facility, deep in the jungle. Rumors say it's where they take kids. Mateo's hands clenched. His sister. He never saw her body. Could she still be alive? He turned to Lucas. "We're going there. Tonight." Lucas hesitated. "We'll need help." "We can't trust anyone," Mateo said. "Not yet." But someone was already following them. From a nearby rooftop, a tall man in a hood adjusted his scope. He watched Mateo and Lucas vanish into the jungle-bound highway. He whispered into his earpiece. "The serpent's heir has awakened. Permission to engage." A cold voice replied, "No, let the boy come. The prophecy must be fulfilled." Mateo and Lucas trekked through the dense Amazon for days, guided only by a compass, a hunting knife, and the encrypted data Clara had entrusted to them. Their destination, the coordinates of a hidden facility known only in whispers as the Black Sanctuary, a secret training ground for the next generation of the cult. When they finally arrived, it looked abandoned. Cracked stone, overgrown vines, rusted fences. But beneath the ruins was a sprawling underground base, and inside it Mateo saw something he hadn't dared hope for in years. Lucia, his sister. She was alive, but not the same. Her eyes were hollow, her face expressionless. She moved like a ghost, trained like a soldier. The cult had brainwashed her, erased her past, rebuilt her. Mateo's chest ached. Before he could reach her, the alarms blared. Lights flashed red. They'd been found. Ezekiel was waiting. The final confrontation. Ezekiel stepped forward, draped in ceremonial robes. Older, but still radiating the same chilling calm. He clapped slowly. "You came, just as I knew you would. Destiny is a circle, Mateo." Mateo stepped closer, knife in hand. "You killed my family. You took my sister. I'm ending this." Ezekiel smiled, unfazed. "Your father was once my most loyal disciple. He betrayed me. And your mother? A threat. You, Mateo, are what remains of both. You were meant to be mine." Mateo froze. His father? A part of this? The truth hit him like a storm. But then he breathed, steady and clear. "I'm not your heir. I'm your end." Lucas, hiding nearby, activated the live stream. All over the world, people were watching. Hidden cameras revealed the underground compound, the children, the symbols, the weapons, the truth. Ezekiel's face twisted in rage. "You think this changes anything?" "It changes everything," Mateo said, and struck. The blade of justice. The fight was brutal. Matteo was smaller, weaker, but faster, smarter. Trained by survival, driven by pain. And in the end, he used a knife, the same one with his mother's initials carved into the hilt, and drove it into Ezekiel's chest. For my father, for my mother, for Lucia. Ezekiel collapsed, choking on his final breath. This time, there would be no resurrection. Epilogue. Interpol raided the compound hours later. The children were rescued. Lucia, over time, began to remember, her smile slowly returning after years in the dark. Matteo returned home with Clara. The world called him a hero, a symbol of justice. But he didn't want statues or headlines.